Tiera, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me today, and the Nerds of Color. For starters, how's 2021 been to you? I hope better than last year.
Kind of the same. It's like both had good moments and bad moments, but it's kind of been the same.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it doesn't feel too different from the beginning of last year, but at the same time, a lot of folks are seeing, like yourself, some more successes, and rightly so. And I was talking to Jordan about this, a few months back. The work y'all have been doing is just really awesome to watch, and seeing everyone's star rise has been just really fun and inspiring too. Can you tell us a little bit about your character Grace from Nurses to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. Grace is described as the heart. Kind of each character is given like an organ or a body part. Grace is described as the heart. She's one of she's a nurse who, no matter what's going on in her personal life, she's always putting her work and her patients first. What I find so interesting about her is that she's got this very like put together exterior while she's at work, but then as you see more of her personal life, you realize that she's, there's some stuff going on. She's messy. You don't really know much about her past. You know that there's been some traumas and some things that have taken her to this point in her life, and I think she's really interesting. She's got a lot going on. She's very complex, but she's the most loyal, hardworking nurse that she can possibly be.
I imagine it's also a challenge to not only learn this character, to like adopt this new life almost, but to have to do that in the midst of a pandemic, to deal with what's going on in the outside world, and then to portray these very essential healthcare workers. What was that like to live? It's almost like you're living with, it's very meta, for the pandemic to be happening, you're playing a nurse. What was all that like, having to juggle that?
Well, so season one, we actually filmed. We're actually filming it 2 years ago exactly. So we filmed it before the pandemic, and then season two, we had just started filming. We had filmed like an episode and a half, and then got shut down and sent back home. And so, when we went back to filming after 4 months of lockdown, knowing what healthcare workers had gone through during that time and such uncertainty during this pandemic, there was so much more weight to it for us going back to work. We weren't just, telling already important stories of healthcare workers that don't often get the spotlight, but now more than ever, we were having an opportunity to honor them in a very like real way. And I think it added a lot of, depth to all of our performances. There was so much uncertainty going on, but we just kept putting ourselves in the shoes of the people that we were playing as much as we could.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really convincing too. I was talking about it earlier. Your castmates, everyone's really just so stellar, and you feed off of each other's energy in such organic ways. What's it like wrapping the season? I imagine it feels like, at the end of summer break, and your friends are gonna go off and do their own things, and it's bittersweet. But what's it like, bringing the season to a close, thinking about what you've been through from the start, how much you've grown, what you've learned about yourself and your character. What's that like for y'all when you're rapping?
It's Yeah, I remember every season you end, you don't know if you're going to get an opportunity to go back and do it again. So it's always like this uncertain goodbye of saying goodbye to the rest of the cast and the crew and the directors and everybody. So it's always really sad. The end of season two, there was so much relief because we got through the season without a single case, a single shutdown. Everybody was safe and healthy, which is a huge feat. So for us, it was like, oh, we did it. Like we got through it. We kept everybody safe. That's incredible. But yeah, like I remember season one, we had a big wrap party, which obviously we couldn't do at the end of season two, but thankfully, Natasha and Sandy both live in Vancouver, so I get to see them quite often. But I remember talking to Donald, who plays Wolf, because he, after season one, was the only one who still lived in Toronto. So all of us were there all the time, and we spent, you spend every single day together on set, and then on weekends you're hanging out for like such a condensed period of time, and then we all finished and up and left. And Donald was like, but I'm left here by myself. Like, I'm still here. What am I supposed to do now?
Right.
But yeah, it's sad, but we feel so fulfilled afterwards.
And y'all really put it out. You put everything, you put it all out there, and it looks like you really didn't hold back either. And I know through, well, not that I know, but I would assume through a process like this, there's a lot you learn about yourself through the craft. What's something you feel you learned about Grace through this process of learning who she is, who she's becoming? 2 full seasons now. What are some of those surprises maybe that you felt you learned from Grace?
I think the biggest thing that I learned from Grace is, when you meet her, she's so independent. She doesn't want anybody's help. She doesn't want anybody in her life. Like, she's in this affair with an engaged man. She's not wanting to commit to anybody or really have any sense of security. And I think what is so beautiful throughout the seasons is her relationship with the people that are around her, and watching her open up to them and realize how amazing it is to have the support and love and care from other people. And I think, especially in times like this, like, we all need to lean on each other, and we can't just lock ourselves up and be alone. And I think it's such an amazing thing to, watch Grace, kind of open up a little bit and warm up to people, and then to see how amazing the impact is that these people have on her life and the situation she's going through. So I think, throughout all this whole craziness of this year, I think I definitely took that away from her.
I think she'd also really appreciate your sweater. I just kept looking at it, and
Self-love.
yeah, it's a real important and necessary thing to do, and the the job that you folks are acting and portraying, it really is thankless. I taught high school for several years. It reminds me of the sort of thankless but very essential jobs that folks endure and go through, and the stories that we've seen the last year. Um, at the very beginning, before you even start the first, you start shooting the first episode, what are you thinking in your head in preparation for this role? Are you like a squeamish kind of a person? I don't know that I would ever be able to play ever. You would probably need to have me in the food court or whatever, by a vending machine. I couldn't be in the emergency room. But what was it like for you to transition to that kind of a space, like the healthcare space?
It was interesting because, like, growing up, I was such a hypochondriac, and like, I couldn't watch medical shows because I'd be like, I have that, I must have that. So it was really, I kind of thought that this was going to bring that out again, like reading about all of these things that can happen to someone. But I just found it very fascinating. I was very, like, interested in, just like learning about the body and all the things that can happen to it and the ways to heal. I am definitely a squeamish person. Like, I could definitely not be a nurse in real life. There's like, anytime there's like needles going into the skin, even though I know how they do that, I see,
Hmm.
I still am like, no, what? Can't look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely couldn't do it. For me, the biggest thing was I just didn't want to look, I didn't want a real nurse to watch me and be like, well, she has no idea what she's doing. So for me, I cared so much about trying to make sure not only did I sound like I knew what I was talking about by researching so as much as I could, but I really made an effort to focus on looking like I knew what I was doing. I guarantee there are times in the show where they're like, well, that's not right, but we're also making a TV show. But I tried my hardest to make it look as authentic as possible.
Y'all really do a convincing job of that. And yeah, people do the cinema sins, the real doctor watches, the show nurses or ER or whatever, and they break down how practical it is. You can only get so much right, but y'all really get a lot right. And again, it's convincing. And like I said, sometimes I have to turn away even when I'm watching, because it's a lot, and it makes you think about the folks who are really doing this, and who don't have that time to pause. There's no cut,
Yeah.
right? And just thinking about that, what are your hopes for Grace's future? And yeah, everyone's hoping for another season, the series to continue. What do you hope for Grace, for her peers, colleagues? moving forward in the series?
I think when we started season one, we're all kind of thrown in as like almost like these like newborn babies being like, here, figure out the world, and take care of people and keep them alive while you're doing it. And so I think what I love so much about this show is throughout the 2 seasons that we filmed, you get to see them grow so much. You also get to see them fail a lot. And I think that that's what makes the show so real and so authentic is you see how, how much they care, how hard they're working, and you watch them struggle, you watch them grow, you watch them overcome. And I think that that's such an interesting thing. And I just hope, the more we develop these characters, the more you get to see their growth and their trials and tribulations and all of those things. Like I just hope we get to see more and more of that. And then, I think it's fun. There's little moments where you see them have a lot of fun and you see them be real people. And I think that's such a great, reward at the end of it.
And I think a lot of that growth makes everyone's anticipation even higher. And I know fans are really excited to see Grace's future and everyone else involved. Before I let you go, what can fans look forward to from you in the coming months, maybe year or two, whatever you're allowed to speak on? I don't want to get you in trouble before anything gets released.
We filmed season 2, which will be coming out at some point. When that does get announced, I will let everybody know. But just, keep waiting for season 2 because it's really good. If you like season 1, you will love season 2. Other than that, like I follow me on Instagram. I do funny like Instagram lives every Wednesday with Natasha. And we're trying to continue that and keep it being something that we continue to do. So yeah.
Tiera, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to all the stuff that you and your friends are getting into and wishing you the best of luck this year and the years to come.